Alright, we are looking at figure 386 now, and what I want to make sure we point out right away with this one is that we are looking at the inches measurements, not the millimeter measurements. In other words, the 139.70 is not what we are using. We are not using 44, and we are not using 57. We are using 5.5, 1 3/4, 2 1/4 is the ones that we are using for this particular drawing. When we do this one on board, we're going to start by centering this box on our piece of paper. Then once we center that box, we can draw our circles off of it and then erase out the things we don't need. So with this one, we will start here on board in just a second. We at this time have already done the measurements and the centering for our particular drawing, but I do have them marked out here. We talked about the box being 4.5 by 5.5, and we're going to run our horizontal lines at the marks that we have already previously talked about. We measured down to 1 1/4 and came across. We measured down 4.5 and came across. Then we measured down 2.5. I'm sorry, it's 2 1/4 over, and we measured a mark down, and 5.5 over, and we're going to make a mark down. And all this does right now is center a box on our piece of paper that is that center box that I just showed you. The circle that we are looking at is a 2 1/4 inch circle. It is with our radius. Our circle template does not have a 4.5 inch diameter to it, so we must use our compass. And our compass, once again, it says it is a 2 1/4 inch radius, so I'm going to set my compass to 2 1/4. The one thing that we do need is our center point in order to start our arc. So if we're looking at 4.5, we got to look at what is half of 4.5. Half of 4 is 2. Half of a half, if you double the bottom number, is 2 1/4. So I'm going to measure down 2 1/4 inches, make my mark, 2 1/4 inches, make a mark. So now I know where to put my compass at on my 2 1/4 mark. If I go ahead and swipe the arc, if I do it correctly, it should just barely touch, or it should just touch the outside edge of my border. Same thing there. So now we've got our oval shape. The next circle that we have is a 1 3/4 inch diameter right here in the middle of the paper. And we do have a 1 3/4 inch diameter template. The first thing I want to do is erase out some of these lines because I do not really want them in there when I finish the drawing. So I'm going to erase out those. I still know where the center point is because I'm looking at this. But when I get a 1 3/4 inch circle, I will put the center point down on it. There's 1. There's 2. And now figure 386 is completed.